Hey friendo, Steve here. Welcome back to Wrestle Juice. So AEW's World's End is in the books. Last big pay-per-view of the year. And you guys have a bunch of hot takes. We're going to talk about them real quick though. Larson and I did not do a review for this going in Raw yesterday after the show. Instead, we're waiting until Monday in order to do it. So tomorrow, if you're watching this on Sunday, be sure to check that out. We're going to do it live at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. And then we'll have our star ratings up tomorrow as well. But this is Wrestle Juice. It's time to hear your guys' hot takes. So we're going to go ahead and dive into them. And first, I'm so happy about this one because it's my good friend, the Rob Observer. And he said this. This is my favorite Ricochet. Covered in toilet paper, evidently, is what Rob is talking about. Look, and I know a couple of you noted this in the thread as well. This is the most interesting Ricochet has been probably ever, including his run in NXT, including his run on main roster. And I'm so glad that they have something for him to do. I mentioned this, I think, the other day, talking about this in a different video. I don't know which one. But, it was the last video I did. It had Ricochet on the whole thumbnail. Gee whiz. End of the year, senioritis. Anyways, it seems obvious they are doing something with him. They're getting him into a feud with Swerve Strickland. I still think it's very possible that Ricochet is a member of the Hurt Syndicate. Maybe that's the direction they're going to go with him regardless. The thing about AEW right now, and maybe I'll get into this a little bit later in the show, or maybe I'll do a whole video on it, I don't know. There are pieces in AEW right now, regardless of what a lot of the, boo birds say about AEW, the naysayers, the people who just want to dump on AEW because it's AEW. The thing about AEW right now is that it's got a bunch of different islands, and a lot of them don't work, but some of them really, really do work. And if those islands became all of AEW, then maybe you would be doing better in terms of ratings, in terms of attendance, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is one of those things that I think in the end is going to end up working really well for Ricochet because the guy got humiliated. And I think you look at the Drew McIntyre situation over the past 12, 18 months or whatever, and that's a guy that bought into the downfall of his character, not being afraid to be humiliated as a character so that when the come up happens, it makes it all the more dramatic. And I think we're going to get a huge 2025 with Drew McIntyre and similarly with Ricochet. This new persona of his, this arrogant heel, douchebag, prick version of him, being humiliated by Swerve Strickland, leading to a feud, leading to more character development for Ricochet. Now, will it end up will it be really, really good in the end? Will they nail whatever landing they might have planned? I have no idea. AEW has been very inconsistent when it comes to seeing their stories through to an ending that's satisfying. So that's the Ricochet situation. This is my favorite Ricochet too because it's something. Him standing in the middle of the ring covered in toilet paper, seething over Swerve Strickland, that's a hell of a story beat. That is a hell of an image to end that particular segment on, to end Ricochet's Continental Classic run on. And I'm really interested to see what happens next. And if AEW can line everything up in their programming where people are interested in seeing what happens next, they'll be in a good spot to at least try to grow their audience. The problem is so much of their stuff, like the end of the show last night, didn't leave people wondering what happens next. Is just leaving people kind of like underwhelmed. But we'll probably get into that a little bit later. Orlando Wright says having MJF win only to have the Undisputed Kingdom jump him is Judgment Day versus Terror Twins level of unnecessarily prolonging a cold feud. Now, 45 of you liked this, gave it the old thumbs up. So this is evidently a cold take, which means a lot of people agree with this. I have not seen much positive in terms of the online sentiment towards the MJF Adam Cole stuff. I think revisiting something that ended on kind of a turd, granted because the dude was injured, we have no idea how good or bad the feud eventually would have been, but picking it back up with the roles kind of reversed and them really trying to bend over backwards to have us do some mental gymnastics in terms of like, why is Adam Cole a good guy here? Why is MJF a bad guy here? I thought it was a fairly foregone conclusion that MJF was going to retain the Dynamite Diamond Ring. It was just how are they going to get there? And they did the thing where he ends up getting the win, even though Adam Cole tried to go a little bit heel on him. And then he tries to break Adam Cole's leg, and then he gets jumped by the rest of the Undisputed Kingdom. Again, I don't know, like the whole like roles are reversed here for the heel and face. It's kind of a mess. I don't necessarily think this has to prolong the feud. Unless they really want Adam Cole to get a win back over MJF. I feel at this point, MJF should just be, you know what? I got my pound of flesh. I beat you for the Dynamite Diamond Ring. I tried to take out your leg and you guys got me. So I think we'll call it even Steven. I think that's not a terrible direction to go here. And then Adam Cole and the Undisputed Era Kingdom, whatever, can move on to other things. I like that they're putting the Undisputed Era back. There was a hot take in here where somebody said something along the lines of, just move past the Undisputed Era. We don't need it in 2025. I think the guys have terrific chemistry. And if they book them in a prominent way, maybe being some of the challengers to Mox and his group, I think that could be some really fun stuff. Whether or not they're going to take that route, I don't know. But I do think they should move on from MJF. I agree with this take, to be honest with you. It's cold. You don't need it again. The match was fine. But it didn't really elevate, I don't think, past fine. W. Stein gives a hot take, says Edge saves the Death Rider story with his return. This is hot because I think a lot of people, especially in the thread and online and whatnot, are like, really? Edge is going to be next? Copeland's going to be next for Mox? I'll be honest with you guys, I don't really necessarily mind it because it does extend things out. And I think it sort of serves Mox's point that, hey, this another former WWE guy is going to come in and try to save the company? No, it needs to be an AEW guy. Look, I wasn't a fan of the match. I thought that it was kind of a mess. I think Copeland coming back. Look, man, I've been an Edge guy way 20 years ago. These days, I can kind of give or take Edge. But you know what? It prolongs the Death Riders thing. I guess the match will be fine. It'll be a WWE match. These guys are who they are. We're not going to get anything special out of it. But I like putting Mox in the main event scene, and then he gets to mix it up with Christian a little bit more. It is what it is. It's not my favorite thing about AEW. I think this is one of those islands that's kind of not working. And I don't think it's going to bring... right now, their main event scene is not making people say, what's going to happen next? I just don't think it's going to. I think everybody kind of knows Mox is basically playing tribal chief guy with his guys coming in. Like that match last night, they had a fatal four-way just so that it was essentially like a six-man tag. And so, Mox basically just playing Roman Reigns with his bloodline and, whatever faction you want to consider, the Four Horsemen, whatever you want to consider it. It's not like Roman Reigns invented the idea of a faction helping a bad guy. But in recent history, that's sort of the more prominent way to go. And then Edge is just the most recent, the next in line to get beat by Mox and the Death Riders. And then he'll move on. He'll probably lose it to Darby. It just seems kind of foregone conclusion-ish before it even gets started, really. Dr. Howie says JR should only be used for sit-down interviews. He's not great on commentary. I'll be honest with you, with the exception of Nigel, I'm not much of a fan of AEW's commentary team. I think Tony's got his place. I really do. But Excalibur, sometimes I get exhausted listening to Excalibur just talk endlessly. It just becomes a bit... I like Taz too. Taz needs to come back. So yeah, Taz. I like Taz. I like Nigel. Excalibur just needs to talk like 50% less. And I think he'd be okay if he just stuck to like the play-by-play stuff. But then he has to over-explain everything. And JR is out there just like, I actually, from an entertainment standpoint, I actually don't terribly, I kind of appreciate JR because he's kind of a train wreck. Can't tell you the number of times I was sitting here watching, I kept on texting Larson. I was like, did JR just say this? What did JR just say? This is crazy. Jason the PPW sound guy says, ice cold take, Mercedes versus Stat was the match of the night. They absolutely killed it. I think Ospreay Okada was match of the night for me personally. This was a close second though. This was, and I wish the crowd was a bit better last night for this match. This match was phenomenal. It was awesome. It was really good. I was just ready for Statlander to win, though. And, this is the second match they've had. Not a terrible idea because that first match was amazing. So, yeah, put them back together. But yeah, this match was awesome. It was really, really good. I'd go out of my way to go check it out. Rock Prod Channel says, don't know if this is a hot take or not. I kind of worry this might be the farewell ride of Kenny Omega, not just from AEW, but pro wrestling entirely. I hope I'm wrong. That dude has put his body through a lot. I've only been watching his stuff from 2017, but I've seen plenty of it from before then. And before then, he was putting his body through a lot. So it wouldn't shock me if we're looking at the last couple of years of his pro wrestling career. Wouldn't shock me. Going through what he went through recently is a lot. And compound that with all the actual wrestling stuff. Yeah, I'm just going to try to appreciate it. I don't think that the next Okada Omega match, probably Revolution, I don't think that, that's going to be their equivalent to like a Roman Brock one last time, right? I feel like it's going to be one last time for them, and nothing's going to match up to their series from, 5 years ago. But I think they could put together a really phenomenal match, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see. Chris Jericho 2. So evidently the sequel to Chris Jericho says AEW has to stop the company takeover type storylines, from the Outcast to the Devil Undisputed Kingdom story to the Elites to the Death Riders. Yeah, I kind of feel like they're on their last strike when it comes to AEW takeover storylines. I think you're right about this. They need to stop. But once Death Riders is done with, no more trying to take over the company. Stop trying to take over the company. Hopefully when the Young Bucks come back, they'll just be like normal dudes. And they won't be like, the Succession type thing. I think they were trying something. I think they might have had something, but there was no real follow through with it. And instead they just did the Death Riders. It was kind of crazy to go from one takeover storyline directly to a completely unrelated new takeover storyline. GoBird XTL says, going from Swerve Strickland's AEW title reign to the Death Rider storyline is the biggest reason for the recent decline in AEW's product. I don't know that that's the reason, although in retrospect, my personal opinion is taking the title off Swerve was a bad move. I think that they need to understand that they've got maybe four guys, who should be featured prominently up there at the top. I'm talking about Swerve, Ospreay, Hangman, I guess maybe Darby. Because Darby, the people really do like Darby. Those four guys, maybe in Okada, because he was a big deal signing and he's a big deal. Takeshita, maybe. AEW's thing is, I feel like they need to let go of 2019. They need to let go of Mox. And I'm not saying get rid of the guy. I'm saying find a use for him that isn't in the main event. Jericho, they got to get rid of him. And again, I'm not saying let the guy go. I'm saying find a use for him that isn't on television every single week. They got to let go of the idea that these guys, and honestly, Jericho hasn't been in the main event scene, I don't think, for a while. He's like the main event of Ring of Honor. Not even the main event of Ring of Honor now. He's their champion. But I think they need to embrace fully, though, the people that, honestly, like, two of the guys in the main event last night, Hangman Adam Page and Jay White. Jay White's another one of those guys. Orange Cassidy's popular and everything, but he's not going to be, I'd be kind of surprised if he's around in 5 years, given that he's like 40 years old or something like that. He's almost 40. I feel like they need to embrace the exciting acts that they have and let go of the older acts that they have. Take that for what you will. I feel like until they do that, like putting that title on Danielson, I just don't think it was a very good idea. I think putting the title on Mox now, where you're not even seeing the title, you haven't seen the title in months, I just don't think that's a solid way to go. All right, Power Packers 90 says this was arguably pay-per-view of the year, and AEW has all the momentum going into 2025, but it will not get that credit from people because it's AEW. The bad faith for AEW is insane. Okada, Fletcher, he goes on to name like a lot of the good stuff that they have. So Power Packers wants to know, he's like, hey, listen, he feels this was a great pay-per-view and AEW's got a ton of momentum. I think that's great that you enjoyed the pay-per-view. That's awesome. I feel like, yes, there is plenty of bad faith takes on AEW. However, to say that they've got momentum going into 2025, I think is faulty simply because the numbers don't adhere to that. The attendance is down. I think there was like 6,600 people for a major pay-per-view in attendance. The ratings have been absolutely decimated this year. So I don't feel like as a company they've got a ton of momentum. They have some pieces in place in terms of stories that I think can be utilized and should be utilized. Will they be able to have people tune into those stories? Are there going to be some compelling twists and turns that get people to turn on and be like, hey, wow, this is cool, what's going on? I don't know that Mox and Edge in the main event of the next pay-per-view is the thing that's going to get that done. I simply don't know. If the idea is the next pay-per-view is Revolution, if they want to do Okada Omega as the main event, and that's why they're doing Mox Edge there, because there's not going to be a title change, I understand that philosophy. Is that going to be the kind of thing that gets people thinking, I have to watch AEW? I don't know that it is. It seems more like a bit of fan service from New Japan in 2017 and all the excitement over Omega Okada then. If that's going to be your Revolution main event, one last time for Omega Okada, and Mox and Edge are battling for the title in the co-main event, the one that happens before the main event, man, I don't know, that's looking to your future. In fact, the way I just put it, it's definitely not looking to your future. So they've got some decisions to make. Do you head into the future with your young guys, or do you stick around in the past with your names who have built the company but might not be building the company right now? So I don't know. They've got some questions to answer coming up in 2025. Hey, I hope AEW kills it in 2025. I really do, because then the thing is, then you'll start to see the online sentiment, the fan sentiment. I don't think the fan sentiment has anything to do with AEW's success or failure. I think it's just looking at what they're doing, not wanting to buy or not buying into it because they haven't given you something to buy into as a total wrestling fan base. That's how I feel. If they start doing cool shit, I think the sentiment will change and people will recognize, hey, they're doing cool shit right now. So hopefully that happens in 2025. Thanks everybody for your hot takes. I appreciate it. Till next time, we'll see you guys around.